Hello, everybody. My name is Jordan Busch-Lawm, and I am a student who recently attended the Newberry Library undergraduate seminar. And over the course of the semester, I conducted research on Othello as a play, and specifically Iago and the nature of his evil. Iago is an interesting character, and when you look into the scholarship on this work, there's a lot analyzing his evil. A lot of people argue that it's satanic in a way, or at least unique. Most people can agree. And that's what originally had my interest. I was going to do this paper on Iago as the devil, but unfortunately, historically, I don't think there's a lot to pull from. And since this class focuses specifically on primary sources, I thought it would be better to focus elsewhere. So in my research, I eventually it came to the discussion of whose play it is, because although it's called Othello, Iago really pushes the play forward. He really makes the plot happen, and he has the most stage time. He has 33% of the words in the play, in fact. So I really got interested in that question of who should be the titular character. Should it be Iago or should it be Othello? Ultimately, I come to the conclusion that it's neither. I don't think either character takes precedence over the other, and a lot of my research is looking into how either character can be brought to the forefront depending on the historical era. For example, in the Victorian era, there was a culture of sexual repression, and since Iago so much of his manipulation has sexual undertones or motivations, that leads to having a lot of his lines be cut. There was a lot of textual cuts in this era, leading to Iago's character to be less convincing or interesting. So in that era, there was a heavy emphasis on Othello. But rewind to the Restoration, and there was a heavy emphasis on stage sensuality. So Iago really shined there. To bring in another example, the 19th century is when the actors began to experiment with the Othello's character. They specifically began to look into the duality of his character. They began to play him as extremely kind and charismatic and convincing in his manipulation, but extra evil and satanic in his revealing soliloquies. So a lot of my research was based on that, but then I go further and I eventually claim that the play depends upon the conflict between the two. Each character is only meaningful because of the other. So a lot of my paper focuses on Iago's evil still, but only in comparison to Othello. So Othello's good is contrasted to Iago's evil. I argue that Shakespeare intentionally connects Iago's character to the devil, not because he's the devil in disguise, but because Othello's evil and hatred for Othello it should be compared to the devil's evil and the devil's hatred for God. I also look at things like rhetoric. Rhetoric was a big emphasis on during the time of writing for Othello, and I look at how the rhetoric of each character correlates to one another. Specifically, they both start as very strong rhetoricians, and as Iago begins to win, Othello's rhetoric deteriorates and eventually to the end. And then I also make a claim that at the end, when Othello dies, Iago's purpose as a character has been fulfilled, and that's why he stays silent. With Othello's death, it should be fitting that is accompanied by Iago's silence, as they are linked throughout the play. And this is the focus of the play, the link between those two characters. This research was meaningful for me in the sense that I think it really gives insight to how, depending on the culture of the era you're living in, that influences how you consume a play. I'm reading about how Iago or Othello become the forefront depending on the cultural norms of which it's being performed in. And I think it's interesting how that can be applied to us today. Okay, so it looks like I'm out of time. I'd just like to end by thanking the Newberry staff and my professors for a great semester. I'm so grateful for the opportunity, and thank you.